Welcome. We'll get started shortly. Before we begin, here's how to earn continuing professional education credit for attending this session. There are no polling questions or attendance checks. Instead, you will demonstrate your knowledge by taking a brief multiple-choice quiz using the Earmark app. Visit earmark.app in your web browser. You can also download the mobile app by scanning the QR code on the screen. Log in, or if you're new, create your free account. Be sure to use a valid email address because that's where we'll send your course completion certificates. From the home screen, scroll down to find the course. You can also tap the magnifying glass icon to search for the course. Tap on the course artwork, then the Enroll button. On the Course tab, you'll find the recording and quiz questions. Complete the quiz to earn your CPE certificate. It takes us a few days to create the course on the app, so if you are attending this session live, please wait a few days. We'll email you a link to the course when it is ready. If you have questions or need help, email us at support@earmarkcpe.com. And now, on to the event.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today or watching this on demand. I'm Zach from Earmark, and this is Scheduling Tax Prep, Controlling Workflow, and Getting Your Life Back. I'm going to hand this off to your instructors for today, Brenda Cannon and Ann Irons. So please take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brenda Cannon.
And I'm Ann Irons.
So a little bit about myself. I started my practice in 2011, but I've been doing taxes for about 24 years and kind of got just very frustrated in the last few years with just giving up just the stress of so much work in such a short period of time and not having my weekends off, and decided to make a change.
I am Ann Irons. I started my firm back in 2002 after I started in tax in 1995. Don't do the math. We're not going to do the math. I started my firm as a part-time at-home business and raised my kids the rest of the time. So it's really more like 2 full-time jobs, right? But COVID really broke me. I was done. Like, it was the end of doing this that old way. And the changes that we made about 3 years ago have really paid off and have really changed the nature of my job and my business. So we're hoping to share that with you guys today.
So how we used to run our firm, I think many firms do the same thing. We would give our clients a drop-off deadline of March 15th, and we had no idea of how many clients would give us their information. And so that created just a backlog of work, to get done in such a short period of time. So that was the main problem with our tax season crunch. What about you, Ann?
Yeah, absolutely. And it didn't really matter what deadline you give people. Human nature, I think, is that's the deadline, so that's when I'm going to give the information. So yeah, do we all have early birds and people who get their information into us before that deadline date that we give them? Sure, we do. But most people would push it right up until, if not that day, that week. So we would get, like 50, 60%, even more of the work dropped off. Even if you move the deadline back, it's still that much of the work compressed in that small window. And it's not sustainable. It's just not.
Right. And you can't control the workflow because you have no idea how many clients would give you their information. And we were the same. We had I think maybe at one time we had April 1st, and then we moved it to March 20th, and then we moved it back to March 15th. And I know I've shared this before, but in 2019, 105 of our clients gave us their tax documents on that one day, in addition to the clients that gave us their information before that. So it was just stressful. And it's also stressful for our admin because they have to, get those projects ready to go. And it's just stressful. And then there's the guilt that goes along with, you're working long hours, you're working 7 days a week, and if you have kids, you're trying to make yourself available for your kids, and then you feel guilty if you're not at work, and then when you're at work, you feel guilty that you're not with your family. So it's either way, you feel guilty.
Absolutely. It's a lose-lose situation. And we're preaching to the choir. You guys are all like in this industry. You've been living this too. Um, the 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 weird dynamic of feeling guilty when you're at work for not being with your family because you're working so much, and then feeling guilty for not being at work because you're not working enough is that it's, I know it's crazy, but like it's crazy. Like we realize it's crazy, but we need to stop doing this to ourselves.
Right. I mean, I remember being, like a family dinner or something and checking my email or thinking, oh, I told that client I'd have that return done, by this weekend. And yeah, it was very stressful. And so this is what's interesting to me. I mean, I think accountants, we just tend to do things the same way. We don't like change. It's kind of a personality trait of accountants. But we're organization people. Like we organize numbers, we do financials. That's what we do. But we haven't organized our workflow. And I mean, and we have spoiled our clients into thinking that, that they can just bring their stuff to us anytime and we'll still have that same turnaround time, 2 to 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, whatever we tell our clients.
Yeah, because if you don't have it back to them before then, they're wondering if you lost their information, if you forgot about them.
Yeah.
As organized as we are, I think our clients get worried that they're not being they're not being taken care of. You know, the the piece of it with the workflow is, how do you decide when you get 105 clients in all in the same day? How do you decide which returns to work on first? How do you decide which ones are going to get filed on time, which ones might go on extension? Like, how do you decide that? You have to touch every single one of them. And it's impossible to do that much without, working 28 hours a day or 34 hours a day, right? Which we don't have. So the workflow piece of it is impossible when you have that much compression um, in the drop off time with clients.
And how do you know that they've given you everything? That's another really time crunch is you start to work on a return and you're missing information. And so you put that return aside and you work on another return and you're missing information on that. So you've contacted both of those clients and you've started to work on the third return, and then the first person sends you the stuff. So then you put that down and you go back and it's just not efficient. Right. And so yes, clients get frustrated because they might be waiting longer than whatever we tell them the turnaround is. And that starts the status checks, clients checking in to see where they are with their return.
And, it's funny because the status checks roll into, if I'm stopping and checking what your status is, I'm not doing the work, right?
Right.
Or if somebody, any of our staff is stopping what they're doing to check to see if we got all your stuff because you aren't sure, well, that's that much more work we can't finish. And it's really inefficient. I think the other piece of that whole frustrated client thing is they don't understand what happens after they drop off their information. They've never been told what happens.
Mm-hmm.
They don't realize what we go through on the inside of our firms, right? They have no idea. They just know that accountants work a lot during tax season. And that's like the general public's assumption is that we just do. And they don't understand the inner workings of the firms that they're working with. So it's reasonable for them to ask,
Sure.
Where is it? When will it be done? Do you have everything? Like, that's reasonable from their perspective, right? So I think we kind of get wrapped up in, because I know I do, the big eye rolls when we have status checks. Of course, I didn't forget. Of course, I didn't. I take very good care of all of my clients, and I have a very organized, way to make sure that nobody falls through the cracks. But it takes a lot of time to answer those questions, and it's easy to get frustrated with the clients.
Yeah.
But when you look at it from their
Right.
perspective, it makes much more sense.
That's true. And they don't know what they don't know. That's true.
Mhm.
And that also creates some frustration within our firm, our staff, they're working long hours, they get burnout, and it's just not a good, it's just not a good system. It really, and it's not healthy. So I was looking into this when we spoke in Chicago. I was kind of researching this, and I found a study that concluded that working over 55 hours a week increases your chance of a stroke by 35%, your chance of heart attack by 17% compared to working 35 to 40 hours a week. So it's not healthy.
It's not. And I think we all have stories that we've either heard or we've lived through of colleagues, bosses. I had a partner at a firm, died at a very young age from a heart attack, 55 years old, and 100% from stress, right? And it's not worth it. It's not worth sacrificing your health. And I know, like, intellectually, we all know that working too much and too much stress is bad for us, but I think it's cool to have, like, the actual study, like, saying right there, this is the health risk that you're taking on by working these hours and having this much stress in your life.
Right. And what I've told some of my clients in explaining our new process is you want your tax preparer to be well rested and to have a fresh brain, because, we can only focus and use our brains for so many hours, and then we start seeing cross-eyed. So, right.
Yeah, I worked at I won't say the name, but I worked at a big 5 firm, let's just say, many, many years ago. And the young people, the staff accountants were, it's a badge of honor to work 100 hours a week.
Right.
And I'm sitting back thinking to myself, like, I don't want to be the client that's being worked on in that 100th hour.
Right.
They all get changed. They get charged the same hourly rate, right? But, like, is the person working on the return fresh, or are they exhausted? So yeah, it's definitely the quality of the work, the quality of life. It's just
Right.
it's all bad when that's happening.
Right. So, what Ann and I both started doing was we started scheduling our tax prep, and we did it a couple of different ways, and we'll get into that. But basically, our tax prep is spread out throughout the year. For us, it's the second week of February through the 20th of August. Of course, we make exceptions for if someone's K1 comes in later, things like that. But that's basically our time span, and our workflow is pretty evenly spread out during that time. And we give our clients a date for completion 3 weeks later after they give us all of their tax documents. 3 weeks later, by the end of that week, we send a calendar to our clients, and there are only so many places available each day for clients to pick from. And then, Anne, you do it a little bit differently.
Yeah, so I don't trust my clients that much. And so I schedule my clients for them. And what we do is we break up our client list into weekly cohorts. And we start the second week of February, and we go, it's the second week of the first week, it's ish, through the end of tax season. And then we take all of our extension clients and we schedule them throughout the summer. And the way we initially started figuring out, like, who do we schedule when, is I literally took our e-file listing, I pulled it out into Excel, I sorted it by file date, and I backed them up 2 weeks. And I said, if we filed somebody on March 1st, we had to have had their stuff in by February 15th. That's their week. And then, so yeah, we do a similar thing. We approach it differently. But I think the end result is definitely that we both have much more control over what's happening in terms of spreading out the work and not having it all come in at once.
Right. I would say the number one challenge for this, and maybe this is later in our talk, but I was just going to bring it up, is having clients, first of all, we want our clients to be okay with extensions, and then doing tax projections. That's one of the important things for our clients, because probably 65 to 75% of our clients get extended. So we want to make sure they don't owe taxes. But that has almost completely decreased our status checks. Clients know when their tax returns will be completed, and they're just not checking in, and they're happy. They're happier. They know their completion date, and they just seem more satisfied.
Absolutely. The status check thing is huge. I don't know if anyone has ever tracked how many status checks they get and how often they get them. And I hadn't ever, but last tax season, I got 2 status checks.
That's outstanding.
During tax season. I got many more during extension time, because we'll get into that later. But 2, because people knew what was going on, and they didn't have to find out later that we were missing something, for example, or if they had been scheduled for the first week of March, they knew we're not going to get back to them the second week of February. The first week of March is their week. That's when we're going to be talking to them about all of the things.
Right. And the same with us, they knew their date, and I think they took it very seriously that we needed 100% of their tax documents by that day. And really, in most cases, we had everything we needed. We did have one employee, the day after our clients gave us their tax documents, we had one employee go through their tax documents compared to the prior year tax documents, and then would ask the preparers. And then she would contact the client and say, it looks like these tax documents are missing. You had them last year. If you have them for this year, we need them as soon as possible to keep your spot on the calendar. And I think that sense of urgency really helped. I mean, they made it a priority because they knew they didn't want to lose their spot on the calendar, because they have to get a new spot. It's going to be in June or July.
Exactly. The way we approach that in terms of figuring out if the clients have all of their documents yet is we go through, actually before tax season, we pull all the organizers and we pull off a list. Well, the first year, we pulled off a list of all the documents that we should get from these clients based on their organizer from the previous year, only because it's easier to pull it off there, because the organizer in our software does give a list. And then we use our project management software and we send that out to them. And the way it's structured is that it will send them a reminder email, or an initial email and then reminders, with a list of anything that hasn't been checked off. And we make each document its own little task, if you will, so that when they've uploaded the document, they check off that task and it no longer is on their list. So we definitely do the same thing, but we approach it a little differently. Yeah. So our admin staff is doing that before tax season. So what's the difference? Brenda's checking it after the fact, where they're making sure that they actually got the documents. And we still have to do that to some extent, because yes, they check off the document is received, but is it the right document? Right. Sometimes it's not. Is it really uploaded? Not always. So there is some checking that we're still doing, but we're doing a lot of it we're front loading a lot of it. So for some firms, that's going to be the better answer, especially if you're light on the admin staff side, compared to somebody who has a lot of admin staff who can handle that task on the fly as the work comes in. So
I love the idea, though, of reaching out before tax season ever happens and giving them a list. I think that's a great idea. So And yeah, so we have regular work hours. We have happier staff. We're more efficient because we do have everything in, and we're not getting the status checks. And also with this scheduling, you can schedule around your vacations so that when you come back from vacation, you're not playing catch up.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Brenda, you're my idol because you're all, uh, you're all like, I'm taking weekends off. I'm scheduling my vacations. I'm just like trying not to work a million hours. So, but I feel like this has really enabled us to be able to schedule our staff, right? Our staff know what returns they're working on in a given week. They know if they finish them, they don't have to work more hours. And they also can kind of schedule around that as well for their own schedule. We don't work tons and tons of hours. I topped out 2 weeks last year at like 68 or 70 hours myself. None of my staff worked more than 55. In fact, if they hit 50 more than once or twice, I'd be shocked. So, which is very, very different from a lot of firms. And I'm really proud of that fact because um, that helps us attract staff
Right.
and differentiate ourselves from other firms who may be looking to hire those same people.
Right. So, I'm going to just, so on the next slide here, it says do the math. And that's just kind of like how we, the technical part of how we put this together. I'm going to kind of go through what we did at first and how we've kind of changed that. We're kind of tweaking it every year. And then we do have some questions. So what we did the first year, we used Firm 360 practice management software, and we ran a report to see how long each tax return took us so we could come up with an average. And I mean, it's a big spread. You have some individual tax returns that you can knock out in half an hour or less, just on the prep part. And then you have some more complicated returns that might take you a day or maybe 2 days. So it's a big spread, but we came up with an average. And so at the time we had 4 preparers, and we thought we can easily prepare 12 returns a day between 4 preparers. But then we thought, you don't remember the things that come up that keep you from doing taxes, like bad weather or a sick kid or all, there's so many things that come up you don't think about. So we decided to add a ton of cushion. So instead of 12 returns a day, we decided to drop that down to 8 spots a day on the calendar, 4 days a week, and nothing on Fridays. And that's just to add more cushion because you're still doing, if your client gets a letter from the IRS, you have to handle that. You can't wait 3.5 months to deal with that. Or you might need to do a tax planning meeting or accounting, payroll, just the non-tax projects. So we set our calendar up with 8 projects a day between 4 preparers. And then in March, we even dropped it down to 6 a day. And then I think we kind of kept it that way the rest of the year. And then the next year, we decided to kind of spread it out a little bit. We were kind of front loaded more during tax season. And I want to be normal. I want to work. I want to have a normal life. I mean, I just told my friends the other day, I was like, remember, I can do things now in January, February, March. So you can invite me now. My friends have no programs. Can't call Brenda. So, so we spread it out a little bit more. And we also sent our clients an e-form called I didn't get the date I want. So if they weren't happy with their date, they could pick a new date. I mean, they could ask for a new date. It was like a waiting list. And actually, this last tax season, in early April, we were ahead of schedule a little bit, and we were able to move some people up and they were happy. But we couldn't move them all up, but we were able to move some people up. And we did get pushback. I mean, we had some concerned clients, worried about extensions. There's a whole education process to let your clients know extensions are okay. And you may just need to let some clients go seek another tax professional if they're so phobic about it, So
Definitely. Yeah. So the way we approached it was like I said, the first year, we kind of went through and just figured out when people had actually filed the previous year and backed into it. But the first year, one of the mistakes we made was giving people a lot of leeway to reschedule, right? So we'd set somebody up for week 3, which is like say the first week of March or the second week of March, and they'd be like, well, I want to move to like week 5 or whatever. And we were flexible with people, but it ended up being a lot of people moved back, and we still ended up with a little bit of a crunch, way closer to the deadline than I wanted to have. So we were much more mindful of that second year. And I moved people up a little bit. Like I moved more people to the beginning of the schedule as opposed to like later in the schedule. And then, putting together that schedule and seeing like, all right, well, with prospects, for example, I'll look at what documents they might be expecting in, and if they have like investment statements from Morgan Stanley, let's just say, and we know that the investment statements are not likely to come out before mid-February, if that soon, we're not going to schedule them at the beginning of our calendar. We're going to schedule them a little bit later. But if we have somebody who's, W-2, 1099-R, Social Security, they're retired people, there's no reason for them to wait any longer than mid-February. So we can kind of manipulate our schedule based on the documents that we expect people to have coming in the door.
Yeah. So we do have a few questions. So Brian Davis, hi Brian. I'm always exhausted, whether it's the 100th hour or the first hour. I get that. I know. I get like PTSD when I think of, and who was I talking to? I was like, I feel guilty for not working on the weekends. Like, how messed up is that to feel guilty for not working on the weekends?
It is 100% messed up. We've been conditioned to believe that this is okay.
Right. We have chosen this life. Robert asked, how do you handle IRS notices if they come in during tax season? Okay, Robert, first of all, tax season is not a phrase that I use in this office. It's a cuss word to me. Those are just February, March, April. Those are months of the year now. So that's when we were talking about cushion. That's why we had tons of cushion for things like IRS notices, because it could be you have to call the IRS, and that can just take a day out of your week. And it could be as easy as just sending something they're requesting, but that does take time. So, and then Heather Johnson, do you have suggestions on or how to manage your existing client base scheduling with addition of potential new clients coming on board? That's again why we add a ton of cushion. And if new clients coming on board, they may be used to filing an extension and they want to file an extension. So, but if you have tons of cushion, and another example of why to have cushion, this year when we sent the calendar out, for some reason, we had nothing to do with it, but our clients that had Gmail email accounts, they got that email with the calendar hours later than our other clients. So they were like, all these dates are taken. So for the clients that were unhappy with that situation, we worked them in because we had plenty of cushion. It's another example.
Yeah. And that's another thing. Like, that's a good point, Brenda. Having that flexibility to be able to move people around, because sometimes you do have extenuating circumstances. You have people who are, maybe not right now, but refinancing their mortgage and they need their tax return because this tax return is better than 2 years ago's tax return. You want the 2 years to be available to the lender, or blah, blah, blah. Or they're, selling their business and they need the financials done, and it just needs to be done right away. Drop everything, hair on fire emergency. And I love your story. Can you tell a story about the client who needed, like, I think it was 2 years ago that you had to like do this giant project?
Well, yeah. So
In the middle of-
it was last year in March. I have a client who started a new business and they were having their grand opening, and they could not, it was an emergency. They couldn't figure out their like point of sale. And I didn't know anything about the software, but I went over there and spent like a full afternoon with that client. It's like early to middle of March. And I took the whole afternoon off and helped them figure that out. And like, they loved me so much but if it had been a few years ago, there would have been no way I could take that much time out of my day to do that. So so Bill Kinney, how's your client retention been since you switched over? That's a good question. So at the time when we started this, we had about 700 to 750 clients. And we lost about 70 clients. But we had raised our fees quite a bit right before that tax season also. So I do think it was a combination of higher fees and the calendar. A handful of people told us, I don't like your calendar, I'm going somewhere else. Like maybe 5 to 7 people told us that. And still, we're kind of weeding through those clients. One lady called us a couple of days ago. They still have not picked a date. So we sent our calendar out this year on December 18th. The prior 2 years, we sent it out on January 31st. And I don't really recommend January 31st. It's kind of a busy day. But we did it in December this last time. So there would still be time for tax projections for clients that got a later date and thought they might owe tax. But so we still have like 20 clients who haven't picked a date. And she called, and it's her return and her mother's return. She kind of takes care of her elderly mother. And she said, I guess I'll just do it on TurboTax if I can't get an earlier date because I don't want to file an extension. And we said, oh, well, we've enjoyed having you as a client and good luck with TurboTax. And we were nice about it, but this is how we work now. If we made exceptions for every client like that, we'd be running the way we were in the past. So
absolutely.
What about
Bill? I love your question. We had I'm sorry, Brenda, did I cut you off?
I was just going to ask you about your client retention situation.
Yeah. So the first year, I started scheduling as part of I was burning it all down. I was either leaving the profession or I was making major changes. Yeah. And as part of that, I did scheduling. I also did pay up front. I also did, I don't remember any of it because now I'm trying to list it off. But anyways, pay up front. Oh, and I raised my fees by a significant amount. People didn't care about the scheduling because to them it was not a huge difference. Because we were basing most of what we were doing on the prior year's time frame, the only real big difference for them to be dropping into a scheduling situation is that was their time. Like they were limited to this week of this is when we're working on your stuff.
Yeah.
And if you're not responsive to us or we can't solve whatever open items there are and we're not making progress by the end of week 2, the extension gets filed then. So if that's March 3rd, it's March 3rd. I am not going through April 10th and doing 250 extensions, right? So more people were mad about the pay up front and the fee increase I don't know that I lost anyone due to the scheduling piece of it. Maybe one or two. But overall, it wasn't even a significant increase in the regular attrition that you get every year.
Yeah.
Like any 8 to 15%, depending on the year, depending on the,
Mhm. Right.
how you're counting the clients. Because if you have one client that has 4 kids returns and 2 businesses and they leave, that's
Yeah.
how many clients is that? Is that
Yeah.
1 or is that 7 or 8?
Yeah.
So yeah, the scheduling for me hasn't really impacted
Yeah.
retention.
Well, good. Yvette says 8 a day for 4 people. That's really 2 a day per person. That puts you at about 120 by April deadline. That's the part that worries me. I'm a solo practitioner and I generate a good bit more than that, but I'm concerned about overcommitting date wise. So you can do more than 2 returns a day. And clients don't mind if you're ahead of schedule. I don't know that you're going to get so far ahead of schedule that you're 3 weeks ahead of schedule. And you could even have, like we sent a form, kind of like a waiting list. But clients don't mind if you're ahead of schedule. They just don't like if you're behind schedule. And that's why we added a ton of cushion, because if we were going to make this big change, and which would force a number of our clients to have to be extended, we wanted to finalize these tax returns when we said we would. We wanted to do what we said we would do. So that's why we added a ton. And I know it sounds crazy, but if you journal everything you do every day, I'm not saying do that, but if you did, you'd be amazed at all the interruptions that keep you from preparing a tax return. Your internet goes out. There's a flood in your office. I don't know. That's pretty extreme, but there are things that happen that keep you from being as productive as you think you can. Because, you can snap out some returns, but they're just things beyond our control that happen. And Jay was asking, did you get a lot of pushback for people who never file extensions that are no on extensions? Yes, I mean, we did. And for some of them, I had a conversation with them. And one of my funny stories, and I don't want to get political, but this one client, he's so nice. And he did have to be extended last year. And I swear he was hyperventilating because, like, in May, when I emailed him and said, I'm working on your return now, I'll let you know if I have any questions, he immediately emailed me back. It was like he was sitting at his computer just waiting. But when it first happened and he had to file an extension, he called our office and he was so upset. And he said, I can't file an extension. I'm a registered Republican. I was like, I don't even understand why you're a 9-digit number to the IRS. But he did. I mean, people adapt or they leave. And I was kind of like you. Like, I was so sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was like, I'm going to change careers because I want my life back in January, February, March, and April. So
Yeah.
I think maybe it's easier when you get to this point of your life and you're like, okay, goodbye. And that frees up space for new clients who are okay with it. And I will say, and I think we kind of forgot to mention this, that our favorite clients, the organized clients, the responsive clients, those are the clients who like this process.
They love it. They love it. In fact, last year, especially, we had this down to such a science where the client documents were due the week before their assigned week, right? The Friday before, so that we would have an opportunity to tell them if they didn't give us everything. Sometimes the appointments that I was having on Wednesday or Thursday that week with clients, those returns were done. And I was able to have these tax prep meetings with clients and discuss what the results were, in addition to, finding out if they had any questions, any additional situations that
Right.
they hadn't let us know about before. And they were floored. They were absolutely floored. Like, what? It's done you'll have it out to me today. You have the numbers. This is great. Like, clients love it.
Yeah.
I think a big part of the success of making change, especially something like scheduling, is how you communicate it. First of all, that you do communicate it a bajillion times, because people don't listen. And that you communicate it in a way that lets them know how it's going to help them. So
Yes.
I use this as a marketing tool. When I sit down with a prospect, I say, we do things differently than most other firms, and this is how we're different. We schedule all our work, and clients know when we're going to be working on their stuff. They know that they can reach us. They know that we will expect them to be very responsive back during that week or 2-week period. And you may not be able to reach us outside of that window because we're focusing as easily, because we're focusing on the clients for that week during that time frame. So, but people love it. They're like, really? Because think about it. Clients would drop off. I don't know about your firm, but in my firm, clients would drop off their information, and it would go into, from their perspective, it would go into a black hole. I had no idea who was working on it, when, if it was ready to be worked on,
That's
what we were
true.
doing, if it was like, what was going on with it, until they heard back from us. And it was hard for them to reach us because we were so overwhelmed and busy. So, so this is really, when you frame it the right way, it's a win. First of all, it is a win for the clients. So I shouldn't have to convince you, because it's a win for the clients. The clients who have to go on extension that they don't normally, and yes, you're going to have to bring them over to the dark side. But as much as scheduling helps us internally, it doesn't have to be all about how it helps us. The more you message to the clients that this is a great thing for them, that they're going to have full access to you during a time that you've designated, with them and agreed to with them, they like that. They like that. And knowing is one of the biggest things that they want. They want to know what's going on, even if it's going to be 3 weeks, 5 weeks, 10 weeks before they're going to get their work done. They just want to know. So
yeah, and
this helps.
that's so true. And they want to know they haven't gotten forgotten, that they didn't fall through the cracks. And again, about communicating, one thing I've figured out, I think, and maybe I read this somewhere, but clients, like, people need to hear something like 7 times before they start really paying attention to it. And I mean, I know our clients tend to ignore our emails, and we don't send a lot, and we have started sending text also. But also, I think they need to realize they're serious about this. Like, they're not going to work us in. They're not going to listen to our little pity story. I mean, like you said, there are circumstances, but you can't make exceptions for every client, or you can't. I personally think, I've heard some people say, I'm going to try this with a few clients. I don't think you can do that, because you're going to mess up the whole process if you, I don't know how you could do it with just a few clients. You kind of have to do it or not do it. But they love having that date of completion, and then they like you have time, like you said, to really talk to them about the future year and about opportunities, tax savings, whatever. I remember in prior years, emailing, like, we'd be down to the wire. It'd be 2 a.m. And I was like, I probably should call my client to tell them they owe $15,000, but I got to get this done. So I just shoot out an email. I don't know what you were thinking, but you owe $15,000. Like, now I can have a conversation with them. It's just more relaxed. It's calmer. And I think that we have a lower risk of making mistakes.
Definitely.
It's just more smoothed out, and we just don't have that stress level.
Yeah. So one thing I did want to talk about a little bit is the process inside the firm, right? So Brenda, I don't know how you actually did mention a little bit how you handle the process inside your firm.
Mhm.
So we schedule, like we put together our schedule and we send emails out. We send a blast email out to everyone. Um, we've we've done the scheduling. You should be seeing your engagement letter, payment link, all the things that they should be expecting to
Mhm.
see. You'll see your document request list, blah 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 blah, and then we send for the first cohort email will be going out maybe in a week or so. We'll send an email out to that first week's cohort, and we'll say, okay, you're scheduled for the week of whatever. Your documents will be due on this date. You should see your document request list within the next day or two. If you don't, let us know, because sometimes it goes to spam because it comes from my project management software. And then, let us know if you have any questions, if you have things that, if you want to have a meeting, the link to schedule a meeting is in your document request. We do that as well. Not everyone wants a meeting, but I'd say probably 50 to 60% of them do. And then they'll schedule a meeting. And then the week before the cohort is being worked on, my admin goes through and checks off like who hasn't signed their engagement letter, who hasn't returned any documents, who have we not heard from. And she'll go through and she'll call them. She'll send them an email and she'll call them. And this way, we're also identifying early in the season people who aren't coming back. Because I don't know about you, but we would find out, the week of April 15th when we're calling, and because I don't know if everyone does this, but I get an answer from everyone. I don't, if you've moved on, that's fine. I want to make sure that you're taken care of.
Right.
It's a thing with me. It's, I don't know, a mental thing.
Yeah.
So I'll send them emails and then I'll have my admin call and then I'll call and say, hey, just let us know if you've moved on. If you found a different solution, no hard feelings. I just want to make sure you're taken care of.
Right.
And we almost always get an answer. But you're identifying those people early on in the process. And that allows you to take on some new business potentially. Because now you have capacity
Right.
that's been freed up. And then once that week of working on their information comes, we start going through, we schedule out who's going to work on what. And then the preparers start working on the returns. And to the extent that we have questions, they'll go out to the clients. But a lot of times, by that point, we have every single document in the door. So there's no more picking up, putting down,
Right.
looking at it 3 weeks later and not having any idea where you left off.
Right.
That's all been eliminated. So the efficiency internally is huge. The client side of it is much, much more organized. So that's kind of just like how we handle that process.
Yeah. So ours is somewhat similar to yours. We want everyone scheduled before the end of this month. We want everyone scheduled for the year. And like I said, I think there's like 20 some odd left. So we were going to send a reminder out today, but the week has gotten away from me. So next week we'll send a reminder and we'll send a text also. The texting software has really been working well for us. And we're going to say, we need you to schedule a date to give us your tax documents. And if you don't, we're changing your account to inactive. And we've appreciated having you as a client. And we did that last year, but it was like in August or no, not August. It was like July. And we had a handful of clients like, no, wait, no. So we'll probably have a handful of clients again. But I want to know exactly what our clients are, like what our capacity is, what clients will be doing taxes for this year. And then, so the week before their tax document delivery dates, we will send them a reminder. And then the day after their tax document delivery day, our admin will go through their tax documents, and we'll compare them to the last year. And he'll set up that project in Firm 360. He'll set it up as received, and then it'll be assigned. So Randy, my business partner husband, he'll assign it. And there's just 3 preparers now. But he'll assign it to, depending on maybe if you did that return last year, he might assign it to the same person. If one return takes longer, then, that you might get that one return, another person get 2 for that one, He'll look at the kind of the time budget for each return. And then I also do we use Teams to communicate, and I do a little spreadsheet. I mean, even though we've used Firm 360, I just like to look at our individual little weekly deadlines. So I'll do a spreadsheet in Excel for what we have to have done by this Friday, and then what we have to have done by the next Friday. And so some of those returns will have already been prepared. And this is for what we haven't prepared yet. And it'll just have the name of the client and who is it signed to. And then and then I have a pivot table also. So as a return is completed, the preparer will just delete that row and refresh that pivot table. So we'll know how many returns each preparer has. And if I have like 2 returns left and maybe Randy has 10 left, I might take 2 or 3 of his. So between the preparers, we collectively will have those returns completed by that Friday. And if those returns are completed by that Friday, that means Brenda gets that weekend off. So that's my motivation. I do have some more questions, a couple more questions. James Dunning was asking about the texting software. We use Simple Texting, it's called, is what we use. And then, you use Calendly, right?
I do, yeah.
I used Calendly and an API called Make and Airtable the first 2 years, and now I'm using some different software, and it's being beta tested right now. So if anybody has questions about that, I'll have my email on the last slide.
Yeah.
Awesome. So then client pushback, we have talked about that. It's, to me, it's about communicating. It's about offering to do tax projections. This year, we are actually sending fee proposals out to all of our clients, and I should have by now, but my December was a mess, and I'm giving myself some grace. Hopefully by the end of next week, we'll have those fee proposals out. And for many of our clients, well, I still haven't decided, but at least one of it may not be the basic, the first fee option, maybe the middle one will include a tax projection. I want our clients to get used to doing that if they need to do that. There are those clients that never need to do that. Their, income is about the same every year. Even if they make estimated tax payments, their income didn't fluctuate that much, but there are some that do need that. And we did send a calendar out last fall for that. We sent a calendar out and said, pick a spot. It was like in November and early December to give us your year-to-date information so we can do a tax projection.
How was your response on that? Did you have as many people as you thought take you up on that?
I don't know what I was expecting, but I think I had 20 or 25 clients, and we already have a number of clients we do that for automatically. I mean, that's just a regular thing, but these were clients that we haven't really done that for before. And so I think they're getting used to this way of thinking that I'm probably going to be extended. So, and here's the thing, you could be penalized even if you file by April 15th. You can have an underpayment of estimated tax penalty even if you file by April 15th. So that doesn't keep you from being penalized.
I know. I think clients don't understand that. They think April 15th, they can pay all the tax all at once and they're done. And that sometimes is true and usually is not.
Right.
I lost my train of thought. I was going to say something. I have no idea. It's about tax projections. I don't know.
And you were mentioning, go ahead. Did you think of it?
No, it's gone. No.
Okay. You had talked about appointments, and I did want to mention that this scheduling thing for us is not for an appointment. That is a separate, we'll meet with clients, but that's separately scheduled.
I know what I was going to say. This whole scheduling thing and doing tax projections and all the other things that we're kind of weaving into this, all clients, the clients that I want to work with anyway, are people who want that high touch or higher, it's not even high touch, higher touch attention from their accountant, and they haven't been able to get that in the past. So this is kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy where if you give that additional that additional touch, that additional attention, that additional hand holding, which we're able to do because it's part of the process and also because it's required as part of the process, because the process won't work if we don't. That attracts clients that are like that want that. And those, in my mind, tend to be clients who are less price sensitive and more service sensitive. They want more and they're willing to pay for it. And for me, that's a win-win as well, because those are the clients I want to work with. This is the kind of service that those kind of clients want. So everybody's happy at the end of the day.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Brian Strake. Hey, Brian. He's asking, is it too late to start this process for 2024 returns? Or should someone start focusing on implementing it next year? Or it is too late to start it for 2024 returns? Or I don't know if you're asking. Well, we kind of I don't think it's too late. Here's my thought. If you did it for 2024 tax returns, you'd want to add a ton of cushion for tax payments with extension calculations, so that for the clients that have to be extended, you'd have time to calculate their extensions. Or you could just start communicating with your clients this year and say, this is what we're going to be doing next year. So,
yeah. Or you could do something similar to what we did the first year and go through your client roster and figure out when they got filed and kind of softly, like without moving when they're filing necessarily too much, implement that process where you're scheduling them. But that will really only work if you're doing the scheduling and not leaving it up to them, because I think, the extension, that's a great, actually, Rachel, I'm jumping around a little bit. Rachel, that's a great idea. The extension piece of it, and the people who go on extension and scheduling their prep out and then rolling it into next tax season, that's probably a great way to approach that.
That is a great idea, because you can have, I think September, October can be worse because you don't have any options. You have to get those returns filed. Sorry. There was one year, it was 2000. I'm sorry, my phone's ringing. It was 2019. No, it was 2021. And I had a new client, and it was a mess. It was such a mess. He had all these rental properties, and he sold some he financed it, and it was, I worked 95 hours that week. It was unreal, absolutely unreal.
That's painful. Yeah, Brian, if most of your if most of your returns go on extension, that's a slam dunk, I think. You can get that started now. Because I feel like that's a big hurdle when you're trying to explain to people, we've changed this process and you're going on extension now. If they're not used to it, that can be kind of stressful and something that you'd have to navigate very carefully.
I think the most important thing is letting your clients know how it will help them, and just a lot of communication. And then I cannot stress cushion enough in your calendar, because you can be ahead of schedule. That's okay. You don't want to be behind schedule. So
yeah, because that rolls right back into
yeah,
right back into too much work in too few hours.
right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't see any other questions. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it. I always enjoy talking about scheduling tax prep.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Sorry, you guys wrapping up? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think our contact info is on the last slide.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me or email Anne.
Absolutely.
Great. And thank you, everyone, for attending or watching this on demand. Here is a quick reminder on how you can earn free CPE for attending today's webinar.
Today's event has ended. To earn CPE, go to earmark.app or scan the QR code on the screen. Then log in or create your free account. Search for the course by tapping on the magnifying glass icon on the home screen and then entering the name of this event. It takes a few days to make the course, so if you're attending this event live, keep an eye out for an email letting you know when the course is available. Pass the quiz to earn your CPE, then tap the button to email yourself a certificate. Stay tuned for more events from Earmark. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.